Hi everybody, it's Mr. Gray here. Thank you again for another great week. It was a really exciting one. We're getting really close. It's the end of trimester 2. So we're just kind of getting along with the year, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's been a really fun week, and hopefully we'll have too much rain that interrupts some things at school, but it's really nice to kind of have a change in weather and feel like it's a little bit like winter here. So the first announcement is photography. So normally I'm having the kids bring their device on Tuesday, but we're all done with bringing the devices unless the kids have an iPad or tablet to work on where they can edit the photos. So this coming Tuesday, we're not taking any new photos. We're going to look at something called mixed media, where the kids take a photo that's actually printed out, like a physical version of one of their photos, and they change it with like a different medium of art. So if the kids have an iPad, they can use the iPad to do that. Or they just have a physical one. So no photography like camera has to be brought this coming Tuesday. But if they have an iPad, they can bring it for that. And if not, we have other ways for that to happen. So that's just the first reminder. The next thing is that the Jogathon is coming up next Friday, March 3rd. So that's something you want to kind of dress appropriately for that. Definitely like running shoes. They're going to be running for quite a while. I'm sure you're getting information about that for PTA. Next Thursday, March 2nd, is our Read Across America Day. So the kids are only going to read all day long that day. It's just going to be a celebration of reading, and it's going to be really fun. If you're nice enough to donate a book at that time, please try to wrap it up if you can, or just bring it to school and I can wrap it. But just you can send those anytime, and that way I kind of have an idea of how that's all going to look. Finally, please don't forget to sign up for spring conferences. There's a link in the email and then also on the updates page. And you can also look at the information for Guys Night and Girls Night, which are coming up in March. For Readers Workshop, the kids are in American Revolution book clubs. In reading, writing, and social studies, we're all about the American Revolution. We've reached the point in social studies where we're actually getting to some of the actual war itself. There's a bunch of things that have been leading up to this, and now it's the kind of had the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was the final nail in the coffin before we kind of actually the war broke out. So the war has broken out in our social studies timeline, and so that's what we're going to focus on, and some things that are happening around the war, as well as some of these famous documents. So very soon we're going to look at the Declaration of Independence and really study it carefully. But in Readers Workshop, the kids are in a book club with a partner for the next 2 weeks. And so we have a bunch of American Revolution book club books. And so the kids are determining how quickly to read those books, what to discuss when they meet for discussions, and also what their work is going to be. They have an individual project and a group project, and some other little things to do before they move on to another book. So they'll probably complete 2 or 3 books in the time that we're working together, and then they'll move on. The last week will be individual, and throughout that time, I'm meeting with groups and partnerships to discuss like what their work is, how their reading is going with their book, and how they're able to communicate with their partners and do that. A great thing for you guys to talk about at home is to ask about not only how the book is going, but how their partnerships are going, because there's a little bit of negotiation happening in terms of how much are we reading, what is the project going to be, how are we going to figure out how to do the project, and that is one of the big things we're learning in addition to learning about the revolution and practicing the work of book clubs. In Writers Workshop, the kids are going to be writing an information book, and so we're studying different ways to organize that information book. The kids have been brainstorming topics right behind me, and they're going to choose a topic next week. They're going to research that topic. They're going to plan out the structure of their information book, and we're going to talk about actually like how to do some more elaboration in their writing when we get to these information books. In math next week, the kids are going to start a new unit on volume. I'm really excited about it, some of the things that are coming up with volume. But we're going to start the week looking at and really comparing area with volume and looking at different figures in 2D and how they correspond to 3D shapes. But we will talk about that, and then we'll also talk about irregular prisms. So we'll look at rectangular prisms and talk about the volume and how to get that, and then we'll also talk about irregular prisms and how to find the volume of those. So like I said, for social studies, we're at the point now where the fighting has broken out. after spring break, we're really going to focus on the really important battles of the war, but we're at the point where we realize what has led up to war, and we're going to look at a few things next week. The first one is the Second Continental Congress. Even though war has already broken out, the Continental Congress is getting together to discuss like what to do about all this and how to kind of form this new American government idea. We're going to look at some of the works and writings that were going around at the time, like Common Sense by Thomas Paine, to look at how this idea was forming and being spread through the colonies. It's a different time. There's no internet. There's no things that we would think of as a way to spread ideas. So these like little pamphlets that some of the founding fathers and other people wrote became how these new American ideas spread throughout the colonies and grew. So we're going to look at that. And then we're going to look at some of the important figures, like there were certain people that really had a big impact on the revolution and how they were kind of like poised to have this really big impact. So we'll look at that as well. In science, last week we talked about the ways that communities try to conserve water and different ways to do that. So we'll look back at the work we did last week, and then we'll also look at some ways maybe the kids have ideas about how to conserve water in their own house or in their community, things like that. We'll just kind of have a discussion about that. And then, of course, they'll see Mr. Marco for Science Lab next week. For vocabulary, we'll continue with Classical Roots Lesson 3. We'll move on to Classical Roots Lesson 4. And then the kids are going to practice their chit-chat speech. The week of March 6th through 10th is going to be the week the kids give all their chit-chat speeches. So next week is going to be a rehearsal week. So they're expected to have at least an outline, but probably most of their speech done and like ready to do. And they'll give that speech to a couple partners, and they can kind of see how it goes and make their final notes. It's just a big rehearsal for their speeches to actually happen the next week. Some of the students are bringing something in for their chit-chat speech that all the kids will do along with them, and some of them are just showing what's happening. So there's a lot of different possibilities, but the kids are hopefully working through that and figuring that out. Thank you again, like I said, for another really good week. We have so many fun things coming up. I'll see you for spring conferences. You can think about anything you want to talk about at spring conferences, and you can email me ahead of time, or you can put it in the forum when you sign up for spring conferences. Open house is coming up at the end of the month, and then spring break, so things are moving really, really fast, and we're getting to a really fun part of the year, starting the third trimester. So it's going really great, and we're having a good time. Have a great weekend.